The day we only care about what's going on in our backyard is a really terrifying one.
It is going to be the Vice that you know and love, but it definitely is in a world that is a little more crazy, chaotic, and we're kind of in the middle of it.
We'll have 50-minute stories, sometimes 30-minute stories. It just gives a chance to go deeper, to do more investigative stuff, to spend more time in the field. So all of the things that make Vice really strong, this is going to be the next level, and we're really excited about it.
They've been holding foreigners, people who they've deemed illegal here.
Has the American dream been reshaped to something that isn't what we'd originally intended?
There are a lot of very difficult scenarios that we approach, and we will find a way, always as journalists, always with the standards, and, very ethical in our approach, but we will tell that story.
I got some good feedback about a story I did on the border. I think because people are so tired of only associating the Latino community with the wall or with immigration. And there we did a story about this huge HIV epidemic that's affecting Latino men. And we introduced drag queens as a way to show that these drag queens are actually helping the community fight against these stigmas. So I think breaking away from these stereotypes and these biases that people have always works, particularly with our audience.
I hate to bang on about China, but I was surprised that people cared about what was going on in China. In general, people don't care, it sounds awful, but about Muslim minorities across the other side of the world. And so I was actually impressed at the response from a story like that. And I was really happy about it because, in my opinion, it's, the global dominance and rise of China as a superpower is one of the most, if not the most important story in the world right now.
Yeah, my most response that I've got recently is this story that I did on an American father looking for his kids that had been kidnapped by ISIS. And just we did a Reddit AMA after the story went out, and it was one of the most popular things they'd done. His wife had taken his kids and left to join the Islamic State Caliphate. And this guy, his story of the journey to look for them really resonated with people, and it gave a new understanding to what the appeal of how that could have happened. The reach of this terrible group could even go as far as the United States. This is a man from Miami, Florida, and it just kind of brought it home to a lot of people.
Some of the things that we've been uncovering could be a much bigger problem than we initially thought.
Did they tell you why they were taking people?
There's something that makes it a little bit different from just the hard news. There's an element of culture and life and humanity and how people are living within these bigger stories.
I think it's also a case of nurturing those sources and making sure that you're in contact with people and you're up to date in terms of what's happening on the ground and having constant conversations with people, and obviously all of us.
WhatsApp chats.
Yeah, a lot of WhatsApp chats. And we are all over the world, and so it's important to basically be getting no sleep and be in constant contact with people from China to Syria to India or wherever it is.
You mentioned Uyghurs, anything that's going on with that, I have to imagine is very challenging to be yes, we want to come here and write about the plight of these people.
The Chinese government have done an incredibly good job at ensuring that the truth is not getting out, and so they are either following journalists around, making sure that they don't speak to people freely, or they are giving people a dog and pony show around certain camps or whatever. So the only real option was for us to go in undercover as tourists, because luckily at the same time as this massive repression is going on, it's also the tourism industry amongst mainland Chinese people is booming. And luckily I speak Chinese, so I was able to get in there and to be undercover as a tourist there. So sometimes you do have to kind of find ways around the official means, especially as the number of countries which are currently rejecting my visa applications is rapidly rising.
I just wrestled a 70-year-old man. I got my ass kicked.
Risk and violence and pain and love, these are all things that can look very different, but at the end of the day, they tap into the same feeling.
We let people speak for themselves. We're not the story. We allow people to kind of be their own story. They are very much, they get to speak in their own languages. They take us on their journey. We spend real time with them. And then we also really spend the time not only in the reporting, but also in the actual production and in the end product. They get the time to actually see it fully through.
Do you guys have like a story you haven't been able to figure out how to crack, or a story that you're like, this is incredibly compelling, we haven't been able to figure out how to like film it and put it on TV?
I think a lot about how mental health is affecting young people of color in this country, and it's something that I keep trying to figure out the root causes of, why do young Latinas have the highest suicide rates among all Gen Zers, right? So I understand the surface right now. I think it's a matter of putting together the root cause, and I'm still not quite sure. And I think a lot of it has to do because there's so many factors, including the politics, 2020, the last 4 years of this administration, that having a clear picture of what is causing that pain is hard to put in words right now.
I really want to do something compelling in North Korea, and I've been there once on a very separate story to run a marathon there, and in a past life. But I've never really been able to, tell the real story about the human rights abuses going on there, and what it's like to live under the very authoritarian dictatorship that is currently in place there. So I'd love to be able to figure that out, but it's incredibly challenging and something that I'm still trying to work on.
The thing that always shines through remarkably with Vice News is that people trust us enormously. And it comes from that authenticity. It comes from saying sometimes, hey, we don't really have the answer on this story here tonight. We're going to tell you about it, but it's a really thorny one and a difficult one, and we're not going to wrap it up and put a bow on it. And I think we take that trust of our audience extremely seriously. It's really our crown jewel, and we're very, very conscious of that to never lose that.
오늘 가지고 벌써